In a world where carbs are your enemy, you need one man to help you fight your battles. That man is Jimmy.
Combating nutrition disinformation and general bull. It's Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com.
Looking for whole food supplements for your ketogenic lifestyle? Then let me introduce you to Further Food. Go to furtherfood.com and you'll see that they source the highest quality ingredients on the planet. They have collagen peptides and my favorite, the gelatin powder to make those yummy gummies. And all of it is sourced from grass-fed, pasture-raised bovine collagen from Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay. This is really high-quality collagen and gelatin. There's no hormones or antibiotics, it's non-GMO, and it's the most tasteless and easiest to use on the market. If you're not using collagen and gelatin, you need to be adding this to your ketogenic lifestyle. Collagen will help you curb your carb cravings. Again, head on over to furtherfood.com, enter the coupon code Jimmy at checkout, and you'll get 20% off your order. Elevate your wellness. Further Food. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another Instagram Live, and we're here with another episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. If you want to engage live in the show, you gotta go follow me. I'm over on Instagram Live at Living Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, you can engage live in the content. We also go live here on Facebook Live. Thank you guys for being here as well. If you missed the live on Instagram, you can watch it on replay for up to 24 hours. After 24 hours, you will need to go over to YouTube to catch all the past episodes. So go look up Jimmy Rants on YouTube or a Google search. You will find the show. Finally, we have the best of the best moments of this here show. It's in podcast form. It's the Jimmy Rants podcast. It's over on Apple Podcasts as well as Stitcher. All of these links, you guys, are at JimmyRants.com. Today's Jimmy Rants is a topic that will be good news for those of you that like to eat sweet treats in your ketogenic lifestyle. Because for the longest time, we have been stuck with the basic sweeteners that are out there, most of them being very artificial types of sweeteners. Things like aspartame, which is known as NutraSweet, and sucralose, which is Splenda. And if you're really, really old school, you remember Real Sweet, which was this kind of liquid that they had on the tables that was saccharin or sweet and low. Well, in recent years, we've been introduced to some other new sweeteners, things like erythritol and other sugar alcohols, which are really bad. Stay away from maltitol, by the way, unless you like poopy pants. But erythritol tends to be one of the better ones that's out there. Stevia, of course. Some people call it stevia, but I was corrected one time on my podcast from an expert on sweeteners, and he says, actually stevia. So I call it stevia. And it comes from a plant, the stevia leaf plant. And then monk fruit is kind of another new one that's out there in recent years. And they usually have some combination of all of those. Well, there's been a new one that's been around for the past year or two that has been highly controversial in the ketogenic space. The name of this one is Allulose. So Allulose, they claimed, was not going to impact your blood sugar, was not going to impact your blood insulin levels, and so therefore would be a friendly sweetener for people that are eating a low-carb, high-fat ketogenic diet. And up until now, there has not been any FDA approval of this particular ingredient as generally recognized as safe. That's called GRAS status. And unfortunately, when it didn't have GRAS status, how did it have to be listed? It was listed as sugar on the label. And so I talked about this on Jamie Rants the other day. Somebody asked what I thought about allulose. And I said, until it is approved by the FDA, I can't put my good name behind that. Somebody will look at that and it's in the sugars, and then that reflects in the total carbohydrates. and I can't put my name behind that until the FDA gets their act together. Well, guess what, guys? The FDA has gotten their act together because allulose, and what we're going to talk about here today, allulose now has FDA approval. And what I think that means is that the keto food market is about ready to be flooded with so many new products. And you need to know about this. You need to know that now that allulose has been given the green light, there are going to be so many companies getting in on the bandwagon. So I have a news story here all about this. This is from Food Navigator, and the headline, FDA guidance could prompt surge of interest in low-calorie, tooth-friendly, rare sugar called allulose. And so allulose, which is known as D-cyclose, is not yet permitted in Europe, but it's now got generally recognized as safe status in the United States, as well as several of the markets in Latin America. It's an ultra low calorie sugar found naturally in jackfruit and figs, and it has a clean taste, bulk, and functionality of regular sugar, sucrose, and about 70% of its sweetness. So the reason why some of these companies have already jumped on the bandwagon of allulose even before the GRAS status was given by the FDA is because of its property. If you've had any of these allulose products that are out there, then you know it tastes really good. It's got a nice mouthfeel. Well, a lot of that has to do with the cooking properties of allulose and why it works so well in keto products. It can be used to reduce or replace sugar in everything from baked goods, candies, yogurts, ice cream, and it even browns when you bake it, which a lot of the sweeteners do not do that. It depresses the freezing point when you're making frozen products, which is why it will work well in things like ice cream. And it is highly soluble, which means it mixes well. There's no kind of mouthfeel. It doesn't have a cooling effect like erythritol. So anybody that's had a product that has erythritol in it, you know when you bite into whatever the food is, it's got this cooling effect in the mouth. Well, with allulose, you don't get any of that. And it also works well in conjunction with both monk fruit and stevia. And so if you're just joining us, you've heard me talk about lately that I'm waiting on the FDA to approve allulose as a sweetener, as a generally recognized as safe. And this approval, you guys, that just came down, this approval means that they no longer have to list the carbohydrates from allulose in the sugars. That's where they had it before. And so that's now been lifted thanks to this brand new FDA approval. And we're going to get into why they approved it here in a minute. And it has to do with this company called Tate and Lyle. So I'll tell you more about that here in just a second. The problem for formulators and marketers has been that allulose currently counts toward the total sugar as well as the added sugar on the nutrition facts label, despite the fact that it contributes virtually no calories and does not raise blood sugar or insulin, which confuses customers, especially diabetics, and has deterred some manufacturers from using it. So this is the thing, you guys. I have articulated this very clearly. I could not support any company that put allulose in their products up until now because it would show up in the sugars. It would show up in the total carbohydrates. And so if it shows up there, even though it's 0 calorie as a sweetener, if it showed up there, I would think people would look at me like I've lost my mind promoting a product that has 18 grams of sugar, even though the manufacturers, well, it's not the same kind of sugar as sugar. It's not a real sugar. You see my dilemma. So this is really interesting because I wonder how many companies have been wanting to use this sweetener, allulose, and they've held back because of these concerns that I've articulated. And so get ready, guys. Now that the FDA has given approval to allulose to be used in food products, the keto market, you guys, is about ready to have allulose fever. I can sense it coming now. There will be so many companies that maybe are still hanging on desperately to some sucralose sweetened product, and they're going to switch to allulose. There might even be some that are using stevia currently that will start using allulose in their products as well. And I don't think this is just an American thing. I think it's going to come around the world. I got to tell you though, as with anything new, I think we should always put on our hat of skepticism, because I think that is healthy to question whether something is good or bad. Even though it's been given FDA approval as generally recognized as safe, does that still mean it's something that keto dieters should be excited about? To be determined. I don't know. I think what will happen now is you'll get all these formulations of new products that will come in, and in the formulation of those products, they'll start sending them out to influencers, people like me, and if they want me to endorse their product and or say this is good for you to try, then they're going to have to endure me doing some blood sugar testing. Insulin testing is a little bit harder, but I would be willing to do that as well. And obviously I will report to you guys anything that I find in that aspect. So it's cautious optimism, I suppose, is how I'm describing this. And again, if you're just joining us, the FDA has given generally recognized as safe approval to the sweetener you might have heard out there from various companies. They've been putting it in the products the last year or two for allulose. So allulose is one of these new sweeteners, and they're now giving it the green light that it no longer has to be listed as a sugar. Part of the problem is it ends in OSE. So people have been told, oh, if it ends in OSE, that's a sugar, and so therefore avoid that sweetener. The problem is allulose is a sugar, yes, but it doesn't act like a sugar in the body. So I still think they have a public relations nightmare trying to explain why this is a gooder option. So a sweetener specialist predicts now that the FDA has decided to stop treating allulose like regular sugar on food labels. Now formulators will embrace it more readily. We have literally dozens of formulations we have queued up for customers just waiting for this ruling. So companies have already been developing products using this in beta. So, kind of just testing the market internally, waiting for this approval to happen. And now that it's here, guys, I predict by the end of next year, by the end of 2020, there's going to be so many allulose sweetened everything you could possibly think of. It won't even be funny. It's coming. The added sugar was a big issue, but no longer. Our phone and emails are now blowing up for requests for more products. So these companies that are testing it, they're already getting people saying, hey, we want this in products. This is a total game changer for the food industry. This is the first ever saccharide that is being pushed from added sugar on the nutrition facts label. Allulose no longer needs to be reported as an added sugar, so there will be thousands of new products. Oh, I think that's a very conservative estimate that there will be thousands. I think we're looking at tens of thousands of SKUs, especially if big food gets a wind of this and hears that the market wants this kind of thing. We could be looking at literally tens of thousands of products that will have allulose in them by the end of next year. This is such a great day and the end of a long battle. So this is somebody it's a company that's already using allulose, and they're real excited because now it's a thing to be approved. So the company that was involved in trying to make this come about is called Tate and Lyle. Okay, so they are a sweetener platform, and Tate and Lyle had done this citizen petition. So they put together the citizen petition, and they were the ones that petitioned the FDA to make this sweetener GRAS, basically, generally recognized as safe. And so let me kind of quickly look on here to give you guys some of the highlights of what their intention was with this petition. They said that they wanted to use it in various products, including rolls, cakes, pies, pastries, cookies, chewing gum, fat-based cream that's used in like cookie cakes. So like think keto Oreo cookie. Pastries, hard candies like mints and candy, frozen dairy like ice cream, sorbet, carbonated beverages. So they want to put this in like soda, like a soda, an allulose sweetened soda, non-carbonated beverages, so flavored waters and fruit juices, soft candies, non-chocolate, plain chocolate, chocolate coated, sugar substitutes, which it would be a total, I don't know what color they're going to do because green has been taken for stevia. Is it going to be a blue packet? And inside the blue packet will be allulose? I don't know. Yogurt, medical foods, ready-to-eat cereals, coffee mixes, beverages that are non-alcoholic, cereal, chewing gum, confectioner and frosting, on and on and on, jams and jellies, sweet sauces and syrups. So looking at like barbecue sauce and ketchup using allulose. So again, if you're just joining us, the FDA has granted approval for the sweetener called allulose. It's kind of all the rage in the ketogenic community right now. Oh my gosh, it doesn't raise blood sugar, it doesn't raise insulin. And so it's a big announcement. A lot of companies see dollar signs in this now approval by the FDA. And I'm asking the question here, yes, we're going to see the market flooded with all of these products using allulose, but has it fully been vetted? Do we really know all of the ramifications of it? I suppose once it's out there, as with everything else, it will become this beta test of all of us being the people that determine if it's good or bad. And so I will be trying maybe a few of these things, testing my blood sugar, maybe even spending the money to test my insulin response to some of this. But I gotta be honest with you guys. As much as I love that there are options available for people that eat keto that can be a sweet option, I wonder how much we need to be relying on sweet as a preferred taste. And I know that's a controversial position, but think about it. Did our hunter-gatherer ancestors really have this need to have sweet on their taste buds all the time? No. Even in 100 years ago, did they have sweet treats readily available like we have today? No. Sweet was meant to be a treat every once in a while. So a little bit of my concern about the enthusiasm about this allulose is, do we really need to be having things that are sweet all the time? Now I get it. You want it there. You want options when it does come time. And let's say this allulose doesn't impact negatively insulin or blood sugar. Some people would make the argument, well, that's an argument for having them often. Well, if it doesn't impact your blood sugar or insulin, Jimmy, why is it such a bad thing? And I wonder if we're training our brains to continue the sugar addiction that we're trying to overcome by using these products. Just thinking out loud, you guys, just trying to get you to think a little bit here, as I always do on Jimmy Rants, about whether this is a good or a bad thing. In the short term, I think it's a very good thing for all those newbie people that are transitioning away from sugary, crappy garbage types of foods. This is a good way, if it indeed doesn't raise blood sugar or insulin, it's a good way to transition them off of the crap and onto good stuff. But I wonder long term, do we really want to rely on a sweetener like allulose to kind of be a regular part of our diet? I don't think so. I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. So on the petition from Tate and Lyle, I'm continuing to look through it. So here's some interesting stuff. They requested allulose be exempted from the proposed labeling requirement as a sugar on the label and as a carbohydrate, based on the concern that it will be misleading and confusing to customers. They claim in this petition that they did, which actually got the FDA to pay attention, allulose is not metabolized as sugar. Allulose does not raise blood glucose. Allulose has negligible calories, and labeling allulose as a sugar will confuse those who have diabetes as well as consumers who are otherwise monitoring their blood glucose levels. So what I want to see happen is, now that this has been given the green light by the FDA, and they always give the green light before these studies are done, but I want to see a researcher say, okay, they think it doesn't raise blood glucose. Let's get us 300 people and let's bring them into a lab and let's test their blood sugar at baseline. And then let's let them eat a product that has allulose in it, a certain dosage, and you could do varying doses of the allulose to see if higher levels maybe have more of an impact or lower levels, that kind of thing. And test both blood sugar as well as blood insulin levels. And they can test at baseline, test at 1 hour, and test at 2 hour. And let's see what impact this sweetener has. And I wonder too, because we don't know, does allulose require some kind of a bulking agent? We know when stevia came out, they had to bulk it up with erythritol because stevia was just so teeny tiny. And it's why those little packets of, say, Splenda and NutraSweet are no bueno, because they had to actually put sugar in the form of maltodextrin in it to help bulk it up. And I wonder, with allulose, are they going to have to bulk it up with something in order to make it viable as a consumer product? I don't know that answer. But I want to see that research, you guys. I want to see a researcher say, all right, this is a grand opportunity. I can maybe make a big splash in the nutritional health community if I test this new sweetener that the FDA has now given the green light to. It wouldn't be that expensive. In fact, if we wanted to crowdsource our own little scientific experiment here on Jimmy Rants, I could charge you guys. Let's all go find a product that we all agree upon. It has a majority of it is allulose, and let's test it all together. How cool would it be if we had hundreds upon hundreds of people doing the same experiment, where you test your blood sugar at baseline and then you eat the allulose food, the exact same one, and 1 hour postprandial, write down that number of your blood sugar, and 2 hour postprandial, write down that number. Let me work on that, guys. I think that could be really fascinating. Really, really fascinating. All right, so then they went through all of the reasons why this should not be counted as a sugar. I'm trying to see if there's anything else in the Tate and Lyle petition that was of interest. So they gave great details to all of those points that they put in there. So the bottom line is it worked. All of their arguments that they made in this petition, it actually convinced the FDA to give it generally recognized as safe status. So let's get back to the story, and we can see what Tate and Lyle said about this. Despite the fact that it contributes virtually no calories and does not raise your blood sugar, the fact that allulose has until now had to count towards total sugar on the nutrition facts has been confusing for consumers. In addition, our customers are looking for solutions for both sugar and calories in their products. Allulose could only deliver on one half of the proposition when it came to the labeling. So up until now, they have been listed as sugars, even though there was 0 calories. So they had the 0 calorie part and could tout that benefit, but up until now, they could not talk about it being sugar free, because on the label it's right there. Even though you try to explain it, you couldn't explain it because it's right there on the labeling. Now we can provide the sweetening ingredient allulose that can really do both sugar and calorie reduction. We see it as a real breakthrough. Numerous customers across categories formulating with allulose, just waiting on this label change so the proposition is clear to consumers. We already manufacture both the syrup and the crystalline formats. So they have a liquid form as well as a powdered form. So the ingredient can be used across a broad array of applications: beverages, bakery, confectionery, and dairy, which we talked about before. I look forward to broad adoption of allulose, opening up a world of sugar-like taste, but without the sugar and calories on the label. So The FDA, in explaining their position and why they decided to give the generally recognized as safe distinction, they got Susan Main, a PhD director of FDA's Center for Food Safety and Applied Nutrition. She said the agency had taken all of these points that were expressed in the petition, and they acted. So here's their official statement as to why allulose is now approved by the FDA. The latest data suggests that allulose is different from other sugars in that it is not metabolized by the human body in the same way as table sugar. It has fewer calories, produces only negligible increases in blood glucose or insulin levels, and does not promote dental decay. As such, we've now issued guidance starting today that we intend to exercise enforcement discretion to allow allulose to be excluded from the total and added sugars declarations on the nutrition facts and supplement facts labels. So that supplement one is important too, because on the supplement label, they can use allulose in supplements without it being dinged either. Where allulose is used as an ingredient, however, allulose must be included in the total carbohydrates. So just like sugar alcohols, just like erythritol, if you look at the number of sugars on something that has sugar alcohols in it, it's not listed as sugar. Sometimes they'll add in a sugar alcohols so you can see the number of carbohydrates from the sugar alcohols. But that total number of carbs that is in the allulose, they said, still will have to be reflected in total carbohydrates. And that's another concern of mine. If you put a ton of this kind of product into a food product, this kind of sweetener like allulose into a food product, it's still got carbohydrate in it. And if you're counting total carbohydrates, you still got to count that. And of course, there's an argument in the keto world about whether you should count net carbs, you should count total carbs. I'm a total carb guy because I think you have to count those carbs, even though maybe negligible impact on blood sugar, maybe negligible impact on insulin levels, but at the end of the day, you got to count all the carbs. And so if you include counting total carbs, then you're going to be honest with where you are. Dr. Main continued, allulose will still count toward that caloric value of the food on the label, but the guidance document issued today states our intent to exercise enforcement discretion to allow it to be used on a revised lower calorie count. So instead of 4 calories per gram, as is true with sugars, it will be revised down to 0.4 calories per gram. So it's about a half of a calorie per gram of allulose, which is so negligible it's not even worth mentioning. As with other ingredients, allulose must still be declared in the ingredients list, and that will be a problem because there are people that are becoming wiser to reading labels. And so if they see OSE at the end of an ingredient, there's a lot of people that will put it right back, Jimmy Moore included. I have trained my brain that if I see OSE in anything, it's going right back again. I'm not even going to touch it because that's generally a sugar. And let's keep in mind, allulose is a sugar. It's just a sugar that acts differently in the body according to what they're stating here. This is the first time that the FDA has stated its intent to allow a sugar to not be included as part of the total or added sugars declarations on labels, a reflection of our flexible and sound science-based approach to food product labeling. So the FDA is patting itself on the back here. See what we did there? Yeah, we're awesome. So, manufacturing companies that are making this ingredient allulose, primarily in Mexico, are getting ready to ramp up production. So again, if you joined us late, the FDA has granted approval to this sweetener that you've been hearing about in the keto community called allulose. And what this means is we're about ready to see the keto food market explode. It's about to have so many allulose sweetened products out there. And I'm asking the question out loud, okay, we're going to have all these new sweetened allulose sweetened products out there. Is that a good thing? should we be happy about this? I suppose it's good to have another option. It's good to have something that could be a transitionary thing for people that are new to keto to get them off of sugar. Is allulose better than sugar? Well, allulose is a sugar. Let's be clear about that. But is it a better option than sugar? I suppose. And so as a transitionary thing, I like it for that reason. But I wonder in the long term, should we be excited that we're going to have all these products that will be sweetened with allulose? I don't know. So there are concerns about the name because of the OSE at the end. They don't think that's a very consumer-friendly name. Ultimately, a lot of the public perception about allulose is going to come down to the price. It needs to be at the same level of price as erythritol or even lower. And so that's going to be the challenge for them from a public relations standpoint is, okay, is it going to be on par with price? Because, you guys have bought like sugar-free chocolates and things. They tend to be a little bit higher in price where you're paying mostly for the sweetener in that. And so will it be cost effective? By the way, this carbohydrate is from corn. So allulose comes from corn, goes through an enzymatic conversion to produce the sweet aspect of it. Our carbohydrate source is corn. It enables cost effectiveness and scale. In addition to corn, different sources of carbohydrate could be used, such as sucrose from sugarcane or beets. They could also use non-GMO corn for those customers that want non-GMO options. Our current thinking is that consistent with the FDA Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act for the nutrient declarations to assist consumers in maintaining healthy dietary practices, we should consider not only the chemical structure of sugars, but also other evidence, including their association with cavities, their effect on blood glucose and insulin, as well as caloric distribution, when determining whether a sugar should be included on the total sugars on the label. So, the official draft guidance that took place on April the 17th, 2019 says allulose is different from other sugars. It's not metabolized by the human body. It has negligible calories. It does not contribute to increases in blood glucose or insulin. And if included as carbohydrates and sugar on the nutrition facts label, it would lead to confusion, particularly consumers with diabetes, as well as those who want to accurately monitor their blood glucose. Allulose differs from traditional sugars in that it is absorbed in the body and excreted predominantly via the urine without being metabolized. So that's why it does not mess with your blood sugar and your insulin level. It gets peed out, basically. And it always amazes me when we have these kind of sweeteners and things. Well, it's not metabolized by the body. And I'm like, it has to go through your system somehow. What is it doing when it's in there? And what's it doing to the microbiome? These are questions, you guys, that while this is great news for the people that want sugar-free options and want something different than what has been out there, I have to ask these questions out loud of, is the FDA approving allulose a good thing or not? To be determined. I don't think we know enough at this point. It hasn't been fully vetted in scientific literature, which is, again, why I encouraged earlier, maybe we here on Jimmy Rants should do a citizen science project once we see what the most popular allulose sweetened product is. Let's all get it. They'll love that if we all bought their product. And then we test our blood sugar at baseline and test our blood sugar at 1 hour and test our blood sugar at 2 hour. Can you imagine if we got hundreds upon hundreds of us that decided to do this? So if you're watching on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or you're listening on the Jimmy Rants podcast, how cool would it be if we did this open experiment? Now, obviously it would be a little bit challenging because of the variables of everybody doing their own thing, but if a researcher isn't going to do this, we need to do that kind of research. And if you're concerned personally is this going to impact my blood sugar? Is this going to impact my insulin level? The only way you can answer that question is for you to do the experiment yourself. So people often say, well, and they'll ask a question like that, is allulose okay to eat on keto? And I'll always respond back to people like that, test it. If you want to see, test it for yourself. I could sit here and tell you yes or no, but that doesn't tell me or tell you how it's going to respond in you. The only way you can know is for you to test it. So the bottom line in this Jimmy Rants, guys, is we have this brand new sweetener. It's about to be on all these companies lining up to try to impress you by using this brand new FDA approved sweetener called Allulose. And I'm asking the question, is it worth it? Do you really want to do that on your ketogenic lifestyle? Do you really think that another sweetener is going to be the grand answer to all your health problems? If you do, then you have deeper issues you need to kind of work through, because I think at the end of the day, our goal long-term with keto isn't to keep eating these kinds of foods. Our goal long-term is to get away from the kind of sugary, sweetened, artificial, or otherwise types of foods. All right, I want to see what you guys have to say. Welcome in, welcome in. We're going to start with Instagram Live first. We'll come over to Facebook Live here in a minute, and I know this got a ton of comments, so hang with me, you guys, as I get through the comments. Charming Confessions, have you personally or know anyone that has tested their blood sugar impact? I don't use sweeteners anymore, but very curious. No, I am not aware of anybody that has tested it. I have tried a few of the products that have had allulose in them. I have not done a formalized blood sugar test. I will make this an open invitation to any company that thinks their allulose sweetened product isn't going to negatively impact blood sugar or insulin levels. If they would be willing to pay for the insulin test and be willing to pay for the blood sugar strips and tests like that, I'd be delighted to do that kind of testing and share publicly, good, bad, or ugly, what results I get. So if you're watching this right now and you've got a company that's got allulose sweetened stuff, let's talk. Write to me, Jimmy at llvlc.com. Does the FDA ever decline any sugar alternatives to approve? I don't trust them that much, says Alberto, and you're right to not trust them that much. I don't know of any specifics about any sweetener that they have not approved. I know with this allulose, they drug their feet a long time because allulose has been out there a couple of years. So they did drag their feet for a little while, and I wonder why this Tate and Lyle company was able to make inroads. Why did it take a citizen petition for this to happen? I don't know. Miracle of Keto says Keto Connect. Matt and Mega did a video about this. They were very enthusiastic about allulose, and it didn't affect their blood sugar. Well, they're also both generally healthy. I wonder what impact it's going to have in people with insulin resistance. And that's a lot of you guys, myself included. I'm not buying into any of this crap, says Tracy. Well, you're probably wise to be skeptical, and that's what I'm trying to be a little bit judicious here by saying, okay, it's exciting for the newbie that maybe needs a transitionary type of sweetener, but long term, I'm tending to agree with you, Tracy, that this is probably not a great thing for keto dieters to be doing over the long term. For myself, any and all of these sweeteners affect my body adversely. And you know that about yourself, Tracy, and I think that's great that you're so self-aware. Mama Ors, will you try it? I'm still a little skeptical. Yes, so I put out that open invitation to any company that makes an allulose sweetened type of product. I'm putting it out to them now. You pay for my insulin test, which will be at baseline, at 1 hour postprandial and 2 hour postprandial, and then pay for the blood glucose strips that I'll have to use to test this. And if they are willing to pay that and send me their product that I can try, I'd be more than happy to publicly do that kind of testing, maybe even live on Jimmy Rants. How cool would that be? Joshua, simple solution is to try it, check your blood glucose. You don't have to eat the whole piece or whatever, just one little bite. Well, the one little bite isn't going to give you the impact of the level of allulose that people will actually be consuming. Because here's the thing, let's just say it's a cookie, okay? So if they make a cookie, you're not gonna eat one little bite of cookie and not eat the rest of the cookie. You're gonna eat the whole cookie. And so if they're putting a pretty significant amount of allulose in this cookie, then that will test whether it is impacting blood sugar and insulin. And you wanna see dosage. I wonder at what dosage is it okay? Is it just the one bite? Or is there some dosage where it becomes too much? And if it's too much, how's that going to respond on your blood glucose? And again, we don't know what impact it's having on the microbiome. Nothing. It's easier to make the product yourself with allulose. I prefer homemade treats. Helps me control the ingredients. Yeah, that's always a good idea. But there will be marketing of this allulose by manufacturers in different products. This is another slippery slope for those truly trying to restructure their lifestyle. Eating whole foods is the key, I believe. Our bodies were not designed to process all of these products. Tracy, that's a whole nother issue for sure, about whether a keto dieter should be including treats and things like that that would have ostensibly have allulose in them. So I tend to agree with you. I did write a book called Real Food Keto. So I do think pushing people towards whole foods is indeed the answer. But for those people that this would be a great transitionary is one reason I'm in favor of this. I feel like I'm trading one addiction for another, even if it's keto approved. It makes me crave more, says Mama Ors. Yeah. I still fall for my own mind telling me I want something sweet. Inevitably, I'll do a fat bomb or something only to wish I had a salty bacon or steak. That's funny. Will it negatively affect our gut bacteria? Yeah, Amber, that's the question I'm asking out loud here as well. I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. Selena says she's in to do the test. So is Carlos. Awesome. I'll be in that N=1, says Beth. If the FDA is touting it as an answer, if the FDA is touting it as an answer, from my opinion, another gimmick, says Lisa. Yeah. The FDA has definitely not been our friend. So why would people get excited that the FDA has approved a sweetener that has a little bit of controversy behind it because it's sugar? It is funny how willing people are to just embrace wholeheartedly. Alberto, if that reacts with tongue's receptors to create that sweet sensation, it definitely reacts in receptors somewhere in the body that will create havoc. That's the other thing. You keep stoking this sweet taste on the tongue with things, and it's 70% the sweetness of sugar. And of course, then if they mix the allulose with stevia or monk fruit, you start getting this explosion of sweetness. And I can't really take really, really sweet stuff anymore, even artificially so. It's just too much. It blows my head off. I mean, a strawberry blows my head off now. It could be because I've been doing this keto carnivore and my taste buds are just so hypersensitive to anything sweet now. So Amber, I've talked about net versus total carbs. Go look up my Jimmy Rants all about that on YouTube. My Jimmy Rants episode, I gave a whole video all about why you count total carbs, not net carbs. What current products are using it? Keto Bobs, there's a bunch of them out there that I'm aware of. The No Foods is the big one. They started sending me some of their stuff a couple of years ago. And they're, we got this new sweetener. And I look at it, it's 28 grams of carbohydrate. I'm like, crap, what is this? All sugar. And I was like, what? So they're the big one. There's other companies. I mean, I'm going to insult people if I don't say all their names, but just know whatever's out there now is about getting ready to go hundreds of fold bigger. Let's see. I'm out. America always trying to find uses for corn. Yeah, corn is definitely the basis of this product. As it is with erythritol, by the way. People don't realize this, but erythritol is also a corn derivative, and I don't know how allulose is different than erythritol, other than some of the things we talked about here today. Joshua says, test allulose in the raw. I'm sure it'll be available soon, but what affects someone poorly might not affect me at all. Exactly. And I think that's the thing here, Joshua, is we need to acknowledge that it could have a response in certain people, especially with insulin resistance. And for someone with insulin resistance, Splenda might be a problem. NutraSweet aspartame might be a problem. And so I don't think we need to just kind of go across the board, oh, this is good for everybody or it's bad for everybody. I think it's going to be very situational. I'm going to go buy some to test with baking, but put it off until I hear more about it. Yeah. Do you have a source for low-cost continuous glucose monitor? They're not low cost, unfortunately, Bob's. You just got to get it. The best one that I've seen with a continuous glucose monitor is the Freestyle Libre. You can put it in your arm for about 12 days and get feedback. Keto Island, I remember testing Cotty's cordial here in Australia. Blood ketones went from 1.8 to 0.2. I've also helped several others in the community. Zero sugar doesn't always mean it won't impact your blood ketones. Thank you for that, Simon. I think that's beautiful what you did. And the fact that it responded in you that way, it might give people pause to go, maybe it's not as safe as we thought. Lipidon says, I'm diabetic and notice that if I eat a keto cupcake with Swerve, it won't affect my blood sugar at all, but I don't eat them frequently and then I bake them myself. Yeah. Temple dietitian is tickled that the FDA, LOL, exactly. Carlos Black and Keto says people are excited for the FDA approval because people can shift the blame from them over to the FDA if something bad happens. Oh, Carlos, speaking the truth as always, my brother. All right, let's come over here to Facebook Live. Thank you guys for being so patient with this hot topic we have here on Jimmy Rants today. Let's see here. Don't trust the FDA, says Christy. Yeah, you're echoing what my buddy Carlos just said. One taste of allulose gave me disaster pants. Oh, that's interesting, George. I have not heard that it responds that way in people, but honestly, I don't know. I'm assuming you're going to have some of the gastrointestinal disturbance just like you would any sugar alcohol because it's not metabolized in the body. When people get all excited, well, it's not metabolized by the body, so it doesn't raise your blood sugar and insulin. Well, if it's not metabolized by the body, where does it go? How does it get out of the body? Does it have to go to get out of the body? I hate to be so blunt about that, but how does it get out of the body? Georgia says, the FDA, no, thank you. Exactly. I'm just getting on here, says Tracy. Is allulose good or bad? It's to be determined, Tracy. Allulose has now been approved by the FDA to be put in products and no longer have to be listed as a sugar. But it's to be determined whether that's a good thing or whether it's a bad thing. Susie says, why would all these companies not use things like monk fruit, which is awesome, and then wait for allulose to be approved? Well, as with anything, I think there's always the desire for something new. We'll think of it in the diet trend world. So the Atkins diet ruled the roost for a little while, then it went away. Then the paleo diet came along and it ruled the roost for a little while and that went away. Now we have the keto diet kind of ruling the roost, and in about a year or two, that will start to decline as well, and then we'll be on to the next trend. It's more about just the attention span of people in general that makes this kind of thing so exciting because it's new. Jessica says, what's your thought on the cephalic response? Can sweeteners trigger your brain into thinking your body is taking in glucose based on the sweet taste alone? Will these sweeteners break your fast and cause an insulin spike? Some people are resolute in the theory, but is this scientifically backed? So to be determined, Jessica, I don't think we know enough. Now, I've done my own personal experiment using sweeteners before, and when I have sweet on the tongue, it does induce, in my brain at least, I want more sweet. And so that's why I have to stay away from that. Of course, I come from a very heavily addicted sugar background where I was basically flooding my body with about 1,600 grams of sugar a day from high fructose corn syrup and all these sweeteners. So my brain has those memories of all of that sugarization that I used to put in my body. So now that I don't eat that much sugar, I don't eat sugar at all, now it's flipped the script that, okay, I can't have even a little because it will institute all of that brain wiring that makes me want to eat more and more of it. Mitzi says this just keeps feeding the desire for things sweet. Exactly, Mitzi. Exactly. And food manufacturers don't care about our health. No, they don't. They want totally profit margin. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm a capitalist at heart. I sell books, and so please go buy my books. But I think you've got to be responsible. And you've got, as a person that's in charge of your own body and your own health, you've got to be responsible with what you allow inside your body. Try and steer clear of anything sweet as it sets off cravings. If I'm cooking, I'll use monk fruit, says Claire. Yeah, monk fruit tends to be a favorite along with stevia, maybe erythritol for a lot of people. Try to get the liquid version of monk fruit if you can. Kimberly says, I will not participate if it has corn or a derivative of corn. Corn is what used to fatten farm animals. I believe plant-based products like stevia are better for the system. Yeah. Lorenza says, I'm in for that experiment, although I do not plan to consume it in the longer term because I believe we don't need added sweeteners. Exactly. Hopefully the food manufacturers we trust will not take advantage of this approval. Emily, I'm afraid that if it's cost effective and it's cheaper than, say, erythritol, they will switch. And money will speak. Because if they can up their profit margin just a little bit, it's always a wise move. But I wonder, will there be unintended consequences of the cost savings? We don't know yet. So some of our favorite companies, if you're watching this and listening to this conversation right now, I think you need to be very wary. I think you need to do your own internal testing to make sure that this is something, a road that you want to go down. Came in late. If it is already in foods, what does the FDA approval do, says Teresa. So it means they no longer have to list it as sugar on the label. That's what it means. Do people really think keto is a fad, Kimberly asks. I will never eat any other way. I'm confused why anyone would not want a healthier lifestyle in and outside of the body. Keto definitely is putting real food back on the table of people again. And I do love it for that. I don't necessarily think everybody needs to be keto, but the great majority of people, absolutely, because a lot of us are dealing with some level of insulin resistance. And if you have insulin resistance, your body doesn't respond appropriately, which is why I think some things like allulose can be problematic for people with insulin resistance, not just because of the brain stuff making you want more sugary foods and sweet stuff, but just does it have a reaction in and of itself? We don't know. And I hope that's what you're getting out of this here today is there's just so many question marks, big old question mark still. And until we can get some of those questions answered, you can't really get real excited about this. We have to be smarter than them, says Emily. Yeah. Tammy says, I bought it once, paid $20 for 1 pound, not a fan. Yeah. So $20 for a pound of allulose. Interesting. So guys, the bottom line of this Jimmy Rants is yes, the FDA has approved allulose as a sweetener with their generally recognized as safe moniker. And what I want to know is, okay, it's safe, but so what? Does that mean keto people should be excited? We don't know. Does that mean manufacturers of foods that would be marketed to the ketogenic community needs to be ramped up and promoted out there? If it leads to a keto cookie and a keto pie and a keto cake and a keto this and a keto that is just a replicate of the crappy garbage we're trying to get away from, then I am not a fan of this move. If it's something that's going to be something that might be temporary for somebody coming off of a crappy garbage diet, okay, fine. But you guys know that's not how they're going to market it. Oh, if you're keto, here, come eat our keto cake that's made with allulose. And it won't raise your blood sugar, and it won't raise your insulin levels, and you can eat it every day. Please, 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 please. That's the concern. And the longer I've been keto, you guys, which is a pretty long time, the more I'm becoming convinced that these are the grand saboteurs of why people quit keto eventually. Because they rely on these kind of products way, way too much. That's it for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. As always, if you want to engage live, you've got to go follow me on Instagram Live right there. I'm at Living Low Carb Man, LIVIN LOWCARBMAN. You can also watch live on my Facebook page. Thank you to all my Facebook livers, and stick around Facebook. We're going to have the after party with you guys here in just a minute. If you missed the live over on Instagram, be sure to go check out the replay. It's up for 24 hours on replay. I'm going to stay away from this stuff until I know for sure what it could do for me, says Mary. Probably a wise decision, Mary. So if you missed the replay, you can watch it on YouTube. That's where we put it. Put all the past episodes over on YouTube. You can do a Google search or a YouTube search for Jimmy Rants. You will find the show. Finally, the best of the best moments of this year's show are in podcast form, and you bet this one's going to be on the podcast. It's the Jimmy Rants podcast over on Apple Podcasts as well as Stitcher. All of these links, you guys, are at jimmyrants.com. So until next time, Instagram Live, we'll see you then.